What has swimmingly meant for your overall league operations?
For league operations, it gave us accurate numbers. It allowed us to see what each of us was doing throughout the entire year, and it kept an accurate time standard for all of us. So that made it easier at the conference meet to have the fastest swimmers swimming in the right heats and making it easier for us overall.
So, just a couple icebreakers. Can you tell me a bit about your team and your league?
So our team, I'll start with our league. Our league is made up of 5 different teams. One is the Carmel Community Center. Our other 4 are basically swim clubs or country clubs that exist in our area. Our team was the largest with roughly 139 to 140 swimmers. Most of the other teams had around 80 swimmers. So our average would probably be around 80 swimmers per team, with our smallest one only having 10 that actually competed, but they had 40 on their team.
And can you walk me through some of your responsibilities that you have?
So I coach my team, which is for Azine Aqua.
Mhm.
I basically troubleshoot for the rest of them. Most of the other coaches don't get as involved as what I do, I don't believe. Like, I watched your training videos religiously before every
Yeah.
single meet just to make sure I was on point with things that were going on. If I see problems that are happening at our pool, I assume they're happening at other pools, and I'll shoot out messages as to what we're going to do. I'm the one that holds the timer meeting at the beginning or the starting or whatever else, just to make sure that we have consistency across the board.
What challenges were you facing with your old system?
The biggest challenge that we had with the old system was being able to have our parents indicate that they wanted to swim with their kids. So we used things like Sign Up Genius, or we had a clipboard at one point in time at the pool that people would sign up with. That was probably our largest challenge. The second biggest challenge was is that we had difficulty in terms of getting the times from the timers into our computer system. So we had to have a computer person or 2 computer people, plus you had to have the timers writing down all the materials and then working its way around to the group that's working the computers to then print the labels to then make the ribbons. That was probably the 2 biggest things: getting the parents to sign up and then getting that information into the computer to generate those labels.
And then what helped you make the decision to use swimmingly?
Ginger wanted to do something because she saw the amount of time that it was making me run around and basically prepare and dealing with parent stresses
Yep.
during the season. And so she suggested that we make this shift. And then lo and behold, we made the shift. And there's pros and cons to everything. But
Yep.
the things that you guys gave us, the tools, definitely solved 2 of the main issues that we had.
What would you say the top 3 pain points that swimmingly addresses are?
Number one is consistency with stopwatches. I think parents were always concerned as to if somebody was starting or stopping too soon. So having a more accurate assessment of what their swimmer was actually doing, I think, was number one. Number two was giving the parents access to results immediately, I think, was a second thing that was really nice with the Swimmingly app, that they could see in real time what their kids were doing. And that was nice with Swimmingly Fan, that they actually were alerted that their kid was swimming instead of going off and talking to somebody and then missing the race.
Yes.
So that's a nice thing there. The third thing is probably the biggest one, is the coordination of all of the times being automatically dropped into the label format or
Okay.
the finishing process. Probably the biggest success because it eliminated so many steps that we had. There were
Yeah.
like 4 jobs that were combined into just one. Um, and that made our lives easier, I would say. So the general start and stop, the access to the parents and making them aware of what was happening, and then basically the ability of it to aggregate all that information into something that we could use quickly. Those are all good things.
When did you first notice results with the switch to swimmingly, like some positive results? When did you first notice those?
I think it was the parents' response from the first meet. They're like, wow, how did you guys do this before? This is great. It tells me this, it tells me that. You the ability to basically have all the information come right in from Swimmingly for us to see what was actually happening, I think was another thing that was really positive.
Good, awesome. That's good. What has Swimmingly meant for your overall league operations this season?
I think for league operations, it gave us accurate numbers of swimmers. It allowed us to see what each of us was doing throughout the entire year, or what was happening at different pools at different times, and it kept an accurate time standard for all of us instead of somebody just punching in and not knowing what was happening. So that made it easier at the conference meet to have the fastest swimmers swimming in the right heats and making it easier for us overall. The past couple of years, some of our teams weren't able to get their times entered because they did something squirrely in high tech,
Okay.
which wouldn't allow that they did not they didn't record the times
Okay.
or save them or download them back into their team manager, which meant when they went to their meet manager, there was no times that they were pulling in, so that everyone said no time. And they would complain that why aren't our fastest swimmers swimming in this heat? I'm like, well, you have no time, so I don't really have a way to.
Yeah. I don't know who your best swimmers are. Yeah.
Correct. So that clerical role that Swimmingly played for our whole entire team, I think, was very beneficial.
Great. When you're running your swim meets this season, what's the most overlooked detail that you find yourself educating your parents or volunteers on?
The biggest thing was, again, on the timing. The
Okay.
timing side of it was the biggest issue that we had, because people that were timers, and sometimes two timers at the same, or that were watching one lane, they would
Yeah.
be off by like 3 or 4 seconds. I'd have to go to them. I'm like, hey, what happened here? Oh, I was watching something else and I totally missed it. All right, well, which one of you guys is right? We're off by 5 seconds. That's going to have a big discrepancy, and we don't really have an accurate point here. That timing information to the parents, or getting them to be able to relate to the need to be specific in watching the race and then hitting that button, that was probably the most
Sounds good.
challenge.
And then how long did your meets last with your old system?
Our meets lasted roughly about 3.5 hours. This meet lasted anywhere from about 3 hours to 3 hours and 15 minutes. So we did see about a 15-minute crunch in time, but it also depended on how many swimmers came to an event.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah. And then how much time do you see yourself saving with Swimmingly, if you save any at all? Like, where do you see yourself either saving time or spending more time, or what's your kind of time demand now with it?
So where I've seen my biggest time shrink is in signing swimmers up for events, because I don't have to go through too many systems. Swimmingly pulls it all into one spot. And then in that spot, I'm able to go through and put all the swimmers in faster than we had in the past. So that was one very nice aspect. Even my wife noticed. She goes, wow, she goes, that was a lot faster than what you used to do. She goes, you used to sit there from 11 o'clock on Tuesday until 5 o'clock waiting for people to say they were coming or weren't coming.
Mhm.
And then, and you just knew ahead of time, you just dropped them in and away we went. So it was, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And then how many volunteers do you have at your meets now versus before? Did you save any volunteers, or is it the same number?
So we decreased by probably 3 positions were eliminated, is what we saw. So the computer people were gone, the runners were gone. We still had the same number of timers, the starter, the announcer, those things, stroke judge, those things all stay the same, but the computer person or persons, they were removed along with the runners. So we saved 3 positions per meet for ourselves.
Awesome. That's great. What's your favorite thing about Swimmingly?
Probably the reminders to parents that are sent out when the meet declaration first opens up, and
Yeah.
then the reminder the day before that if they hadn't signed up, they needed to sign up. That was probably my number one favorite because there was no excuse then that they should miss this because they put in their own email, they got all their information,
Mhm.
it's your fault if you don't sign up your kid. I don't know what else to say. I didn't miss it this time. They're here. So that was probably number one. Number two was the consistency. I like that too, with the starts and then potential error for the parent at the end to hit the button wrong. But the consistency, no matter what, we had a consistent start. There are mistakes that happen. We're humans, but it was much more efficient, and then that way it basically related that information, or how it relayed the information directly to our ability to print labels and to curate all the times. That was really nice also.
Great. That's awesome. And then, what advice would you have for others considering using Swimmingly?
Definitely watch the videos. That is key to understanding how the system works and knowing how it runs. That's probably number one. Number two is only have one voice during timer meetings instead of having everyone trying to share their advice. Have a set couple of practices that you want to do, and then go through both the single events and the relay events so that they understand what's the difference and how they have to enter in those numbers. And that makes it smoother, I think. Having too many people say, too many chefs in the kitchen, isn't that what the old saying is?
You want to, yeah, too
Or
many cooks. Yeah.
too many cooks, there it is,
Yeah.
or whatever, um, leads to a lot of misunderstanding and no one's on the same page. So I think those would be my pieces of advice.